Good morning.
Good morning. You appear like magic.
I appear like magic. How are you this morning, Dr. Grobe?
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
I'm so glad to be able to meet with you this morning so that we can discuss how to stay heart centered during any stressful time, but particularly this stressful time. Um, so many of us have been sequestered with our families or without. Many have been alone for many weeks. Allowed to go out for essential things like pharmacy or groceries, maybe a little bit of fuel for their vehicle to get around. We've had some more abilities now to get out and exercise, which is great. I myself am trying to figure out how to get rid of the quarantine 15, as they're calling it. Um, a lot of that is just cortisol and worry and fear. And so that's really kind of what we were discussing earlier in the week is we need to bring uh, some suggestions and some discussion about how to stay heart-centered and stay out of fear uh, during these times. And so I appreciate the time that you take with us to bring us your insights and have a brief half hour, 45-minute little discussion today and some action steps at the end about how we can really focus our heart and teach you a little bit about how that will work.
Yeah. Um, I could come at it from, Chinese medicine perspectives and naturopathic perspective, but uh, you and I had chatted before as well about the mindset and how we're at a place of choosing right now where, because we are powerful creator people and what we create depends on where we're at. So if we're creating out of fear, then we're going to get more of the things we fear. And so while we're in a place of slowing down and seeing more heart-centered activities, community helping each other, people running errands, people sewing for each other, giving resources to each other, that is a fantastic time while we're feeling that and experiencing that and seeing that to stay focused on what we want to create, what we want our future to look like, and let it be in a heart-centered way. So so my thought is that we need to start envisioning that. We can't just have it as a fleeting thought. We need to be uh, actually intentionally, and perhaps as groups even, whether it's prayer, meditation, however you want to do it. But I think we need to be thinking from the heart. And maybe Marie, you could expand on what is it, what is heart centered versus, not heart centered for people who don't know what that feels like or looks like.
Well, really, when we're not heart-centered, we're more in our thinking brain, um, what other people maybe would refer to as ego. Um, and I look at the being heart-centered as being, I'm going to say, without judgment. So, and let me define a little bit how I got to the judgment place. It's just being discerning. Uh, is it going to harm me? Does this directly affect my life? And if the answer is no, then you let it go. Now you're out of judgment. You're discerning. So it's kind of like, okay, so if I go for a walk, will I encounter a mountain lion or will I be safe? That is primal discerning. Will it hurt me? Will it attack me? I need to take an action or do something about it. If the answer is no, then you just kind of let that judgment go. So, does it uh, if somebody wants to have purple hair, does that directly affect me? No. So, do I have an opinion about it? I might have a personal opinion about it, but does that's me judging based on reflection of me and my upbringing, and because everything we perceive is a reflection of what we've learned, and so we're always, this is part of human nature. We're always kind of judging or discerning. I want to pare it down to the very base. Does this directly affect me and how I live my life, or will it hurt me, harm me in some way? And if it doesn't, I think pretty much I have to let it go, unless it really goes against my moral, ethical. Then maybe I need to take some action or have some further steps. But I'm making it very simple,
Hmm.
because I want to maybe get to the root of it right from the beginning. So that's how I can stay more heart centered. I can go from not judging purple hair to letting it go and just looking at the person or the situation literally from my heart as I, you know,
Hmm.
touch my heart. Um, I think if we do more of that and have the intention from the heart, we all manifest very quickly. We do.
Hmm.
Collective consciousness is amazing. There have been lots of studies on transcendental meditation and how they've been able to manifest different things. So, that is kind of my exercise of being discerning. Is it going to harm me? Can I
Hmm.
just have this intention from my heart?
Now, from a physiological view, if you think about where your heart is between your gut and your head, so we have our intuition or our bad feeling, good feeling in our gut. Usually, that's almost always where we associate it with, and then our logical, critical thinking in our brain. And so the balance of that is the heart. And so for me,
Oh.
when I'm coming from the heart, I'm thinking empathy and compassion. Because when I think of someone not having heart, they are missing that quality. So to me, and I totally agree with you on the basics. Is it any of my business kind of thing? You
Yeah.
know, it's like we have our likes and our dislikes, and we are the at this moment the compilation of everything that's happened to us, everything we've experienced, everything we've done, everything we've not done. We are that summation in this moment. So that's how we perceive our world with our senses. And we incorporate the way to filter all that information that comes from outside in is our brain and our gut. And then our heart projects what we experience. And I think we said it in a previous one, light dispels dark. Dark does not capture light. And so when you think of the heart, if you are heart centered, it's light. It is coming from you as a higher frequency, um, projection of light from yourself. You can even envision it being there. In fact, pictures of religious icons, if they show the heart, it's radiating things.
Yes.
And they know in Institute of Heart Math that there's a frequency and that people in a room can entrain to the same heart rhythm. And even if you're frightened, if you have a frightened person and unfrightened person, and I'll give an example that they've given in the Institute of Heart Math in their research, is a rabbit, a wild rabbit brought into a room, terrified, but a groundskeeper who had bonded with that rabbit or been around the rabbit and it was calm and it kind of, encouraged it and gave it snacks, came into the room and the rabbit heart entrained with the groundkeeper heart. So when we think of what we're all going through right now, and a lot of the actions that are being taken are out of fear or because of fear or for fear, that if even just a handful of people are heart centered, they can change that fear. And so when we're thinking about what kind of a world we want to come out of, and some of this we might want to keep, some of it, the slowing down, the being with family more. I know a lot of parents are like, I kind of like, I want to homeschool. Some parents are like, oh, clearly that's not my thing. And other people are like, I really am enjoying growing food. I'm really enjoying being outside more in nature more and helping my neighbor more. I really got to know my neighbors better as we're sharing resources. So I think there are things we want to keep that this brought us back. And you have said in the past about the past that we are going back in some ways to some old ways of operating that are pleasant and pleasing and desired in a lot of ways. It's not just uh, melancholy for what's past. It's like we can bring that forward. It doesn't have to go away.
Well, I would agree. I think that um, I hate to call it a consequence, but how about something a little bit happier? Um, you know, families are looking for things to do that don't involve screen time.
Mhm.
And so I saw a little blurb, heard it on the radio about what card games are you playing that your grandparents or great grandparents played?
uh,
And and children, this was hilarious to me. My age is showing clearly. Um, it was remarked by a teenager. They had no idea that that solitaire game could actually be played with cards
oh,
because it's been on their device.
right.
It was a
So they didn't
free
know that.
they didn't
Yeah.
know. So that was a
Okay.
freebie game on my flip phone, for heaven's sakes.
Hmm.
You know, Year that was like one of the first games, right?
One of the
But
first games.
it
Yeah.
can actually be played with cards. And so, they're learning hearts and they're learning all, and some of this is really, when you think about it, it's bringing family together around a table
Hmm.
other than eating. It's also visual stimulation, it's laughter, it's
Hmm.
learning, it's uh, cooperation, it's all of the things that I grew up learning as a kid when my mom said, "Go out and play," into the neighborhood with the neighborhood kids, and we didn't come home until, the street lights were coming on. That's a real thing.
Hmm. No.
From the game, we put all of our stuff away.
Yeah.
We kept each other entertained by going from hopscotch to Red Rover to softball to kickball to swimming to all these different things that were all very kinesthetic exercises, and when it rained, we played cards on the porch. So, I'm seeing a lot of those kinds of gems coming
Mhm.
from this sequestering time, albeit it's been stressful and there is a lot of fear. And so what I was hoping to do today was um, have parents and kids alike understand that it's choice. You can choose to live from the heart and not from fear. We have to be discerning, but if we have a collective or community consciousness of wanting to live from the heart, then I think that that's what we create. I know that's what we create.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're at a really strong parallel opportunity, parallel lives. So both of us want to think alike. Both of us want us to be envisioning the same thing. So we have the technological or technocratic society. Everybody wants to be connected via the internet, something outside of ourselves. It wants us to evolve into a Borg mind, so to speak. Yes, I'm a Star Trekkie in the past. So it's where we think alike, but we lose our individuality in many ways. And I've seen that over time, just in this globalization that we've had, where something was unique to a place where you would visit it because it was the only place that did or had something, whether it's a particular scene or particular artistry or a particular mineral or something was unique about that place. But as we globalize, you can now find that same rock, or like, for example, turquoise jewelry. Now you can find it in every airport in every part of the country, instead of just in the Southwest.
Hmm.
Or we have here some fantastic artists, and I remember, because I used to travel a lot, I found, her, that was something very unique about that artist that was here. She did these amazing little paintings, a kind of fairy kind of stuff, and I remember traveling to the East Coast in Arizona, and I was so disappointed to see her art there. On one level, it was fantastic that everybody got to see it, but on another, it didn't make it unique anymore. It just was another thing to sell, you know? And so there's some pluses and minuses. One, we can be more connected, and in other ways, we take some of the unique quality out. Um, but from that parallel, that think alike kind of thing, then we have this other think alike where we are coming from inside ourselves, not outside ourselves, and we keep our individuality, we keep our uniqueness, but we add it to it, so it's just like an orchestra. There's this sound and 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 this sound. Now you have a song. Now you have this amazing creation ability that just a single individual can create. But now it's like all these other ideas that make it even bigger and more beautiful. And I know there are people that are very technological would say, well, you can do the same thing with what we do. One person builds on another person's ideas. But what I find is then we have copycat stuff. It's not the same. And once a cell phone was invented, everybody had a cell phone. You can pick up 15 different smartphones and they all look pretty much the same and do pretty much the same. The only difference is how you do your case, or where you put your icons or the bling you put on it. But other than that, which makes it unique to you, which is again coming from inside you.
Hmm.
And so the heart centeredness, if we want to manifest, if we want to think alike, we want to think from that, because all possibilities are possible. And at that point, we can create what we want, not what we're told we want. There are things rolling out right now I never desired. I never wanted them, but I'm being told I have to have them. But if I'm coming from the heart, I can say, nah, no, thank you. I don't want that purse. I don't want those shoes. I don't want that phone, you know? I so
Well,
that's
and I,
so that's where I'm at. I think we need that unity of conscious heart.
well, I think, and this may be one of the unintended consequences, but I think it's for a really great reason.
Mhm,
And that is some of the consumerism, or having to commute to go to work,
mhm.
albeit some people are now sitting in front of their box, as I have a friend that refers to it as the box. Sit in front of the box and work, but they can get their work done in maybe a more expedited manner that then allows them more time to do those heart-centered things, like spend time in the garden and go for walks, or follow behind the child that's learning how to ride the bicycle, and all of these. Our day becomes a little bit more structured in chunks of 6 hours instead of 12 and 12. Um, the unintended consequences, I believe we're going to have a lot of empty buildings because they aren't going to need to house that many people that are physically there going to work.
And I have had the same thought with that, but I was just recently watching an interview with someone who's coming from the technological pathway, and they were saying, I envision not having enough buildings. We're going to have even more cubicle spaces so that people can social distance for their work. But he was still seeing it as outside
Yeah.
the the home. And I'm like, wait a minute. But maybe it's, that's what he thinks is ideal. And I'm thinking this other thing is ideal where, and you're quite right, things have slowed down when we
Yeah.
purchase more often. I'm not saying exclusively, but more often it's the essentials, the things we need, not just the, oh, it caught my eye and it was cool and interesting. And we are getting more time for creativity. We are getting more time. It was always time or money. Now nobody has money. so so now we have time. And
Yeah.
so it's giving us an opportunity to fill in those gaps with what we really wanted instead of what we had to do. So, in some ways, I want to keep those things. I want to keep some of those things. And I intend to move forward from the heart with what I want. And I want everybody to envision that. I want everybody to envision from their heart.
Well, and for me, I'm a very linear thinker, so I have to make a list, and I've been a list maker as long as I can remember, like from 10 years old. So that'd be what, fourth grade. And I've been color coded and very organized, right? So I've made a list in the past of, okay, if I have X amount of time, what do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish? And some of those things have been take a bath, you know,
Uh-huh.
have 24 hours in the day. We've always had on our clock 24 hours in the day, but we've had so much that has been almost imposed upon, or
Hmm.
we have allowed it to be imposed upon in order to make enough money to be the caregiver, to be
Hmm.
um, the taxi to different things, and really I I have heard many more children say that they really don't wanna go back to the way it was.
That's really good to hear, actually, coming from kids. Um, I have run into a few teenagers because they're running around, with impunity right now. So they're pretty happy with things. And I've had some conversations with them. And I know some feel like people are just not critical thinking, their generation. But I know some that are thinking that, but in the meantime, they are one that's critical thinking and starting to look at the differences in the way life was versus the way life is. And they're saying the same things as I kind of like some of this. So I've been talking to teenagers a little bit more. I haven't talked to some of the younger ones, but I know my daughter's in seventh heaven. She's like, I can sleep in. I can take my time to eat my meal. I can
Yes.
play, and mom is here. And oh gosh, she's got the world at her feet right
I
now. She's in heaven.
I would say I feel very, and my kids are adults, so I have a little different perspective, but there is more of an equal division of labor because it's just easier to say, let's prep this meal together,
Mhm.
or it's just there's an awareness. And I think that's part of that being heart centered is we really have this time where everything is slowed down to have an awareness as to all the things that maybe mom or dad or caregiver or grandma, grandpa, all the things that they did, and you really didn't see it because you were too busy. You were in
Yeah.
your head.
Mhm.
And now that there are 24 hours in the day and it is so long, and it's just this time to be observant. And so I'm suggesting, and I think this is your suggestion too, that not only do you be observant, but out here in our head, the things that we observe to just really kind of bring it down and into the heart and have things reflect from the heart rather than from this linear processing of the head.
Well, and yes, and the perfect example of that, and just in real life, is if we think from the head, we think someone has to tell us to recycle. Someone has to tell us not to litter. Okay. Complete departments of advertising have to show us little icons to put away our garbage. But
Sure.
if we're taking that thinking and put it in the heart, we think, I have to dispose of this cup. And I could throw it on the ground, as could everyone else, because it's their right to choose whether they throw it on the ground or in a receptacle. And uh, but it's going to affect others. So if you're thinking from the heart, you're thinking about nature and the consequences of nature receiving that cup. And you're thinking about the people walking down the street and the consequences on the people that are going to experience that cup. And so your decision then is heart centered to be for the good of all because you want to for the good of all rather than I
I'm
just met my need, drank my coffee, and I don't need it anymore.
I'm anti being told what to do,
Or I'm anti being told what to
whether
do. Yeah.
whether you're a teenager or just
Uh,
a rebel,
right.
but you choose to do it. I
Hmm.
think one of the great examples of the worldwide stay at home has
Hmm.
been the planet has said thank you.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can see it on the nightly news or whatever, but if you have friends around the world, ask them to snap a picture of their local whatever. Uh,
Oh, there's wildlife going
there
in the streets now. Yeah,
it
there's
it is
it's causing some problems, but yeah, there's definitely
there.
yeah.
Spent a little time. We are now allowed to go recreate on the boat, and I said, "Look, all I want for Mother's Day is to sit on the water in the boat and read a book. I
Mhm,
need some vitamin D." And I was pleasantly surprised at how clear the water was in many areas of the lake.
mhm.
Now, a couple of reasons. You haven't had the boats on there to churn up the muck from the bottom, but really, I saw schools of fish that I haven't seen. But was I looking for them before?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Because like this wildlife in the streets thing, it doesn't mean that they weren't there. It's just we couldn't see them or they came out at a different time and now we're observing or we're
Mhm.
looking out windows kind of thing. Um, but this caring for others and caring for an environment it is being taken advantage of by some. It's like, well, like the logo or slogan, which seems more like a tagline for big pharma, is, have you accidentally killed someone today? Oh, come on. Come on. We make conscious choices not to harm other people, but that is too much. That is
Well,
far too much.
I don't
That's
have
like,
30 seconds of a disclaimer about all the things that it's going to potentially do to harm someone.
yeah.
I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to take
Mhm,
care of my family. I'm going to be um, a little bit of a conformist because I want to fit in and I don't want to make myself a target. But really, my intention, and that's what I'm suggesting, is that we all lead with an intention, and that is
mhm,
to be heart centered and to do no harm and to be healthy.
mhm.
And that is one of the things I repeat internally and externally on a daily basis. I am healthy. My
And
family is healthy.
and that's the best thing you can do to help each other is to be healthy yourself. If you are healthy, you can help someone. You can prevent them from getting ill because you're not ill, and it's a win-win for everybody when you're coming from that direction.
Right.
Um, I'm. We have more injury from car accidents, from pharmaceutical overdosing problems.
Mistakes.
We
Yeah.
mistakes. We have more surgical problems than we're going on right here, but no one's going around saying, did you accidentally kill someone today? So to me, that's not heart-centered.
No.
That's pushing guilt out on you, kind of
And
thing.
fear, and
And
fear.
fear. Yeah. And that is not heart-centered at all. The
Well,
balance of heart center can be love, but it can also be anger as far as the balance of fear, because anger is rocket fuel. It's not always something to be avoiding. Anger can make you take action and change things. However, no harm, no harm. That's where the heart discerns when to take action, what kind of action to take, how to motivate. That's where the heart comes in, helps you balance what's going on in the gut, in the head.
wonderful. Um, I know we have a guest, and so I was going to ask if they had any. Shannon, do you have any comments that you would like to make about being heart centered?
Can you hear me?
I can hear
Yes.
you.
Okay. Sure. I don't know. I kind of like what it's kind of, how do I say it? I guess I didn't really differentiate between brain centered, if you will, versus heart centered. So it's really interesting to hear you guys talk about that. Yeah, I just hadn't thought of it that way. And it's a good way to look at your surroundings. And I like that you brought it up, or doing this so that it's more mindful of where are you coming from when you're judging or you're thinking, or the person with the purple hair. So that's just a really cool analogy.
Yeah, and I literally, I was at a local grocery store, and the woman was probably in her 70s, and for I don't know, I'm a product of growing up in the late 60s, early 70s. I was very Catholic at the time. I'm still recovering, and it really, like, it made me pause, and I just kind of sat there, and I was in disbelief, and I had this whole process that I went through. It was like an inner conflict, really, because I'm going, okay, this isn't right. And I'm going, my God, she's 70 years old or whatever. She can have purple hair if she wants to. How does this
Mhm.
affect me? It affects me not in the very least. So, in a very short period of time, probably 2 minutes, I went from, oh my God, how could she go out in public, to, why do I care? If that's what makes her happy and she wants to have purple hair, okay. And so it was really me. It was all about me. And that,
Right.
whether I say that's ego, but it was my processing. And so I did. I went from this, oh my God moment, to, isn't that the coolest thing I've seen in a long time? That she's confident, that whatever, because whatever, it does not personally affect me. If that's what makes her happy, that's what makes her heart sing, I'm cool with it. But it took me a minute or two.
I keep thinking that how unfortunate that we can't learn that when we're in our teens. It seems like as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that, like, who cares? So exactly, take pause. It does. It makes you make pause and really
And
think, what does it matter? But I couldn't think that way when I was
so I'm wondering now,
18.
um, as we're all kind of, all the teenagers are pretty much at home or spending a lot more time at home or with their, wherever home is, or they've chosen to stay during this time. Will some of our lessons be conveyed to them, and are they receptive to the, not whatever goes, but less judgmental? Because I would not want to be a teenager in junior high or high school. There's a lot of peer pressure. There has been a lot of this. And I think that's, maybe, I haven't asked that specific question of the teens
Mhm.
in the neighborhood, but is that why they feel less pressure? Like, why are they loving staying home? Not only mom and dad are around, or grandpa and grandma are around, or caregivers are around, or aunts and uncles, whoever's taking care of them. Um, but is it because they have less peer pressure? Are they feeling less judged?
Right. Not worried about what do I have to wear today and what's my hair look like. And yes,
Yeah,
you just hope that that
yeah,
day.
yeah.
Well, it's
I
because
mean,
those are all external things. They're not
Right.
given the opportunity to come from the internal first. And normally you learn to come from the internal first, from the heart first at home, because you're loved, you're nourished, you're often respected, at least in a balanced home. There's lots of dysfunction out there, but um, so that is ideally where the core begins. But if you've got dad here and mom there and everybody going this way, or single parents are really struggle with it too, it's hard to be strong enough at the core at the home to balance out when you go to other now strangers. And I agree. Now, of course, we're old farts now, so the and that's not meant to be derogatory. It's meant to be, we
I could own that.
different generation. When I was your age, I did, right?
Exactly.
So our schooling experience was, in my opinion, not as traumatic as teens have now. And I do think it was because I was around my home more. I was with a family more. We did those family dinners and card games and camping trips and ran around the neighborhood in herds. And I don't think the kids are getting that. Everything separates them. They might be connecting on the internet, but it's not the same thing as that kinesthetic sensory experience.
I was also allowed to make a lot of mistakes.
Yes, yes.
There,
Perfection is more necessary now.
it was, I'll call it, some of it was natural consequences. You throw a rock up, it's going to come down. It's going to hit you if you're in the way. I mean, it was very much that, uh, you throw mud, you're going to get dirty. Um, but it was decisions and consequences. And some of the consequences were having to go back and apologize. And that, as we were talking about earlier, it was that gut feeling making its way to my head that made that chain of that was wrong. I didn't maybe necessarily know it was wrong. Now I've been corrected by mom, dad, whoever, a neighbor, because that did happen, right? We all took care of and we all looked out for each other's kids, not out of fear, but out of love. And I would have to go back and own up to my mistake. And there was a connection between my gut and my brain. And so I didn't want that feeling back again. And I think with this disconnect that we have with all the screen time, there isn't there isn't that component to it. And so I'm hoping that being a little more mm, aware, or having some kinesthetic almost training with how do you get heart centered and how do you make that connection? What does that feel like to be in that space versus being in your head? And tonally, I will say, I've heard this from uh, music coaches. You have a chest voice, like you have this belly voice, and you have a head voice, and it is distinctly different in its vibration and its tone, and it comes out very differently. And so it's a real vibration, it's a real octave, it's all of those things. And so I think when we can put a feeling to it from the gut to the heart to the head, I think that makes a huge impression.
I I've been thinking about the screen time thing. Um, because many of us, we've made leaps in, everybody being integrated by the computer, a 10-year leap in months. And I've thought about that. And at first I used to think that the computer's evil, is like we're all just losing ourselves. But at the same time, and so I was concerned. People being at home, being on TV and internet and phones more often. And we've all been experiencing that, especially if we have to work too, because now even those of us who didn't used to work on a computer have to do a computer for a lot of us. And so I have found that we didn't lose that heart, which I was worried we would. I truly thought we might. And again, maybe it's that time, maybe it's the reflection, maybe it's the recognizing I don't want to sit for hours on end. I'm not sure what it is, but I am pleased to see that we haven't lost ourselves in it. I really concerned that might happen, and I'm, there's a balance. You have to consciously pry away from it sometimes, but there's wonderful spiritual healing, meditations, all kinds of things online you can do. A lot of books that you would normally read that you can do online, but there's also skills you can learn. So there's lots of things that are useful, but it still takes some away time, and we haven't lost that. And I'm really glad. And I don't know, and I'm thinking of families, and I'm thinking, not completely dysfunctional, I hate you, each other families, but I'm thinking of people who are at least discovering each other, that were very disconnected. Um, and I'm also thinking of even single people that are home alone, kind of thing. In some ways, they're using this box to connect with people they wouldn't talk to as much, or in other ways. So I'm not as convinced it's as evil as I was, although we have to watch very carefully what path that brings us. And I think you targeted, Marie, when you said feeling. And we have to make sure that this doesn't lead us down a path of not feeling anymore, where it's just a visual or reactive state that we're in, instead of a feeling and a connection of the heart and mind and gut to be human. And if you think about it, we've got the universal system and we've got our earthly system, and we stand in between. So we are like the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the universe is the brain, because it's way
Very
smarter than
interesting.
us. And then the earth is the very physical gut visceral component. And we are the heart. We get the connection of both those energies. We're the conduit of that. We connect heavenly into earthly and earthly into heavenly. And it runs through us. Frequency, biology, biomagnetics. That's why we're affected by all the pole shift stuff going on right now, and the sunspots. And so we are the heart. I don't know if that was intentional or straight up evolution, but it's pretty cool. And I think we should
That's
take that
very
and
cool.
run with it and expand on it and see what we can do with it. And so I want us to be in our heart. I want us to not just react, but act intentionally from the heart. And recognize, oh, I'm in fear. And like Shannon was saying, I realizing, where is that coming from? What part of me is that coming from? And put it into the heart and interpret it there and see what that says. And would we do things different, or say things different, or would we apologize or compensate, or would it change the consequences if it came from the heart?
True.
So
Yeah, that's very,
yeah.
very true, very valid. And I love the analogy that we are between the universe. I'll, step off and say, you're God, the universe, whatever that energy is, and earth. And we are that in between. And we're the stewards. We get to direct, orchestrate. And so what better way to do it than being discerning and being from the heart? And really, I'm going to say almost exercise your heart in such a way that's not to go out and jog, because I'm not jogging. I'm just telling you right now that is not happening. It's
I can't
not
picture you
happening.
jogging either.
No. If I'm running, and I am a retired emergency medical technician, if you see me running, someone needs CPR. That is the only reason I run. That is it. And I have done it, and I would do it again. But no, not running. But I want to exercise the heart and maybe teach a little. So I'll put on my over 50 glasses, and I am my age, and just kind of give you a little exercise, if you will, kind of a guided, uh, how do you get heart centered? And this comes from Greg Braden's book. Let me go back. I believe it was Resilience. Sure, it's up at the top. Resilience from the Heart. A growing body of scientific evidence now suggests that pumping of the heart is as important as it is may pale in comparison to the addition of the functions that we have discovered about intention. And so these actions, even Eckhart Tolle talks about it in his book, where you focus on the flower and you're like, oh my God. So you're staring at the flower. And if you don't understand the concept, you're just staring at the flower going, okay, now what? Not helpful. So we're really talking about awareness. And now that we have lots of time, it seems like 24 hours in a day seems really long now, whereas 3 months ago, it wasn't enough time. But we have slowed down. So allowing your awareness to move from your mind to taking one of those things you might have written down on a piece of paper that you want to descend some awareness to or spend some time with. And so choosing one of those things to focus on. And so you get out of your head and you're really you're focusing, and you can even physically put your hand over your heart. If I'm a very kinesthetic person, as you can tell, I talk with my hands all the time. So putting your hand on your heart and spending time envisioning or bringing that person or thought situation uh, to your heart, and then breathing and slowing down your breathing is also helpful. So this kind of goes back to that Heart Math Institute uh, research that was done, where you really find that animals especially will match the other mammal, uh, in trying to bring back that calm and comfort. So
The
you're gonna
Marie, the heart meridian goes through your palm into your pinky. And so when you're doing that,
you're completing
you're
the
connecting,
circuit.
you're completing a circuit. Yeah.
That's very interesting. So as you begin to breathe, maybe a little more slowly than usual, allowing 5 or 6 seconds for an inhale and an exhale, it sends a signal to your body that you're in a safe place and that you're supporting this process. Deep, slow breathing has long been known to stimulate relaxation with the nervous system, specifically the parasympathetic response. And then a feeling, you're really looking for that feeling of almost rejuvenation. Um, to the best of your ability, to feel a genuine sense of caring and appreciation, gratitude, compassion for anything or anyone. So I look at that and go, all right, um, it could be an inanimate object, sort of another living thing. Like I did this exercise with flowers. I planted seeds, and I had this intention of, I can't really grow things. I do not have the green thumb that my mother did. But I decided I could make this happen. So I planted seeds and I spent time sending love, and my intention was that they would sprout and grow, and then I'm hoping to transplant them outside. And so I specifically was looking at the flowers on the outside of the pot rather than the inside, because my scientific mind goes, all right, let's see if let's see what happens. And I should have posted a picture. Maybe I can find it on my phone and show you. The seeds that sprouted first were on the outside rim, where I had been specifically sending the seeds. I watered them all at one time, but I focused on the outside rim rather than the center.
Marie, I want to add to that, if you're having a really crappy day and you're having a hard time feeling heart-centered, focus on something you're grateful for. And so it could be you're grateful for that tree outside. It could be you're grateful for that card someone sent you. You're grateful for the money to buy your favorite pen or that can of soup. If you can focus on gratitude, Dr. Emoto, the Japanese researcher that looked at the molecules of water, he found love and gratitude were the highest frequency and created the most beautiful crystalline structures, the most complex. And so gratitude is a way to get in that door if you can't find anything to love or feel happy about at that moment. So even in the darkest times, if you can find gratitude, it's a way in. It's a way in.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
That is lovely. So I'm just kind of going through. So you find that what we're looking for is to create that feeling, like that gratitude feeling, right? And then ask your heart like a question. So you want to feel this harmony between your brain and your heart that enables you to tap into your heart's wisdom. And you have as you continue breathing, you hold your focus of the heart, and you can ask your heart questions. What does this feel like? And you'll get a feeling or a sensation. Your heart doesn't have to preface any historical. You're not looking to repeat a negative. You're really looking for your heart's wisdom, and you may get a thought, a feeling, a memory, but you'll become aware. You'll have an awareness, and then make a note. Was it a warm sensation? Was it a tingling? Was it a ringing in the ears? Was it what arises for you? Because really, this is all about you. There is no right or wrong. And you kind of develop your own intuition in this way of this means that. And so
once you recognize the signal of what that feels like for you, when you feel that another time, you'll go, oh, I'm feeling heart-centered.
Yes.
So you'll know what it is. You'll know that symptom, and it's a good one.
And I think that we're all pretty aware of what fear feels like.
And where in our body.
Mm-hmm. I can't honestly, I've only heard stories about people tell me, or I've heard that they said I should have listened to my gut feeling, which told me to do cut and run, whatever, right? So we're looking at this from a different perspective, saying, how about spending time on things that are love, gratitude, appreciation, and creating? You're really looking to create more of that. And if you have a hard time doing it for yourself, then do it with a friend. So I can focus on love and gratitude for another if it's difficult for me to focus on love and gratitude for myself right now. And then once I can do it for a friend, then I can exercise trying it for myself. Sometimes that works for people that need that half step in between.
Yeah, because once you, I mean, friend or a loved one, it's easier to send to someone else, right? It's easier to do nice things for someone else. It's very hard to receive. But if you imagine doing that and then in turn imagine being that friend and what would that friend do if you were in front of them, you know they would be sending you that. You know they would. And so you can both create that and then receive it by putting yourself in their shoes. But this is empathy. This is not someone who has no empathy can do. And if you don't, if you wonder if you have empathy, you can practice and keep practicing and create that. Empathy is not, I'm going to say, not completely absent. I think it is drilled out of us sometimes. And I think it is part of human nature that sometimes doesn't get a chance to blossom. And I think we can nurture that and nourish it and create that blossoming no matter when. I think it can happen. I and an example would be, you know, criminals where they have this epiphany or this life-changing moment while they're incarcerated half time, and they are able to think about the things they've done or the people they've affected, and they will have what we call a change of heart. So I do think it can happen. It's, but you have to be open to it. You have to be willing. You have to want to, on some level, consciously open that possibility, create that. Yeah.
I think
So
it's wonderful.
receiving is just as important as sending. And that's where most people have the greatest difficulty.
Well, and I've had, there are naysayers, and I'll say, when we, especially here in the United States, we're very caring, compassionate as a group of people. And so if there's a tragedy in another part of the world, people will say, post, express in some way their outpouring of empathy, their outpouring of sympathy in the way of thoughts and prayers. And it's one thing to type it out, hit send. It's
Mhm.
another thing to pause, think about it. Obviously, you've had a little thought about it if you're going to type it,
Mhm.
and then hit send. But do you continue to send love? Not, I don't necessarily, people want sympathy. Sympathy is in the short term, we appreciate, but in the long term, we need to fill up our love bucket. And so to send love, if you're going to send thoughts and prayers, send love too, because that's really felt.
Mhm. Mhm. That's why the power of intention works. Lynn McTaggart over in the UK, she has been doing this intention experiment for years, and will post people that need help on some level. And when I come across those emails, I stop. She's not asking you to send an email or a text or anything else. She just wants you to take a moment and think about that person. And a lot of times I don't know how to fix them. I don't know what their problem. She'll give minor details, right? But I don't know how
Yeah.
to solve their problem, even though I in my heart want to be a fixer. And so I just send them love. That whatever the best outcome can be is the best outcome, because I don't know what they want. And I don't want to take away what they want. I don't want to intend to my agenda on them. It might be to leave the planet, it might be to stay. But I want them to have what they want, the best outcome.
Or what is their need Is it
Where's
is
their
it a
greatest need?
what
Yeah.
is their greatest need? Is it a lesson they need to learn so that they now have that lesson, they now have that feeling, and now they can take their action now
Mhm,
that they understand?
mhm.
You know, I go back to the kind of the judgment. Who am I to judge? I will send love,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
that is a universally accepted everywhere is love. May not take your MasterCard, your Visa, your Amex, your whatever, but love is universally accepted. And so that is the message for today.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
love. And, I guess if we could all band together, join hearts, we would send love and all illness would disappear.
All illness, all wars, all politics,
Right.
we wouldn't want that. It just wouldn't be necessary because we'd be self-governing from the heart. And that's do no harm to self or others or planet or yeah, yeah. If we were operating from that regularly, not just occasionally or a fleeting thought, we wouldn't be probably in most of the boats we've been in. We'd be in the sun reading a book all night.
Right? Not running to somebody's emergency.
Mm.
Well, thank you, Dr. Grove. This has been absolutely delightful. I've learned a few things, had a few epiphanies, and have a few action steps.
And thank you, and thank you, Shannon. It's lovely to I don't know, just well, to be part of a community out
To
of the
be
heart.
right.
Yeah.
Thanks to you guys for kind of reminding us that to take a pause. I don't know, for me, that seems to be kind of my big takeaway of you guys today is literally take a pause, whether it's taking a pause to connect your heart to your head, whether it's taking a pause before you judge someone else, before you take a pause, like before you react. So thank you for reminding me to take a pause.
You're welcome.
You're very welcome.
All right.
We'll talk again. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Shannon.